I was 19 when they stationed me at Outpost 407, a Soviet radar and logistics site tucked deep inside the forests of East Germany. This was 1982. The Cold War was still very real, and every border post felt like the edge of the world, but none felt as isolated as ours. The road to the base was nothing more than a cracked concrete path swallowed by pines. Our transport truck shook so hard my teeth clicked. We passed rusting warning signs, old minefield markers, and a stretch of rotting wooden posts that looked like they hadn't been touched since the 60s. But the forest wasn't the strangest thing about that place. It was the bunker. They pointed it out before I even stepped off the truck, a concrete mound, half swallowed by dirt, with a rusted metal entrance sealed shut by 2 welded steel plates. A faded marking was still visible above the door, K-17. And the first thing our lieutenant said wasn't "welcome" or "follow orders" or even "long live the motherland." It was, "You can patrol anywhere you like, but you don't go near K-17. That's the rule. There are no exceptions." His voice was flat, absolute. The sergeant beside him repeated it, slower this time, as if speaking to children. "Never enter K-17. Never open it. Never approach the door alone." Then he looked at each of us one by one, like he was checking for cracks in our armor, checking which one of us might disobey. No one asked why. Not because we weren't curious, but because the tone they used made it clear that the reason didn't matter. At Outpost 407, why was the one question you didn't ask. They assigned me to perimeter patrol. I walked the same dirt path every night, rifle slung on my shoulder, breath fogging in the cold East German air. The forest around the base never felt natural, too still, too silent. Even the birds seemed to avoid it. But the bunker always felt like it was waiting. Every time I passed it, I felt something tighten in my chest. The air seemed heavier there, like pressure was building under the ground. The welded plates on the door had deep scratch marks, rusted, old, but unmistakably real. One night I stopped and shined my flashlight on them. They weren't made by tools. They weren't straight enough. They weren't deliberate. They looked like someone or something had clawed at the metal in desperation. I reported the scratches to my shift commander, like any good conscript should. He didn't even look up from his cigarette when he answered. "We know. Do not file a report. Do not take notes. And do not go closer than 10 meters again." Then he said something that made my skin crawl. "Every unit here learns the same lesson once." I waited for him to explain. He didn't. No one ever did. Rumors spread anyway. They always do. The older soldiers whispered after lights out that K-17 was one of Khrushchev's abandoned psychological warfare labs, that they tested acoustic weapons down there, that a gas leak killed an entire research team in the 60s,
that the Stasi tried to torch the place, but something inside burned back. But the rumor that stuck with me the most came from a private named Yashin, a quiet guy who hardly spoke at all. One night while we cleaned our rifles, he leaned closer and whispered, "The bunker isn't abandoned, it's sealed." I asked him what he meant. He didn't answer. He just stared at the wall for a long time, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. During my first month at Outpost 407, the rule was simple. Do your job, patrol your route, don't go near K-17. And for the most part, I obeyed. But the thing about forbidden places is, the longer you stand guard next to them, the more they pull at you. And before long, I started to notice things. Small things. Things I should have ignored, but didn't. Things that made me start to ask the question no one wanted to answer. What exactly is inside Bunker K-17?
I learned early that in Outpost 407, nothing stayed quiet for long, not even the things that were supposed to be dead. A week into my patrol rotation, something happened that made me realize the officers weren't just being dramatic with their warnings about K-17. They were terrified of it, and they expected us to be too. It was after midnight. The forest was cold enough to bite, and the fog sat low on the ground like a blanket of breath rising from the earth. I was walking my usual route, east fence line, south tower, then back past K-17. Routine, quiet, predictable. And then I heard it. A metallic thunk echoing from underground. Not loud, but heavy, deliberate, like a door closing in a place no human was supposed to be. I froze. Even my breath stopped halfway in my throat. I waited. Another thunk, slightly closer, followed by a dragging sound, metal scraping against metal. My flashlight shook in my hand as I slowly stepped backward, rifle raised. It wasn't coming from the trees. It wasn't coming from the fence. It was coming from beneath the bunker, from inside K-17. I radioed command. Possible intrusion at restricted bunker, requesting guidance. There was a long pause. Too long. Then the lieutenant answered in a strangely calm voice. Do not approach, do not investigate. Continue patrol. I hesitated. He added more sharply, "That is an order." The radio clicked off. I stood there, staring at the bunker door, silent now, feeling an emptiness in the pit of my stomach. A sound like that shouldn't exist. Nothing should be moving down there. Nothing alive, anyway. The next morning, our unit ran a standard security sweep with the K-9 team. I was with Sergeant Litovkin when the dogs reached the path near K-17. What happened next is something I've never seen before or since in trained military animals. All 3 dogs stopped dead in their tracks. They stared at the bunker door. Then all at once, they started growling, low, primal, their fur bristling. And then they bolted. Not backing away, not whining.
They ran full speed in the opposite direction, dragging their handlers with them, choking on their own leashes, claws scrambling across the dirt. These were military dogs, trained to charge gunfire, trained to bite through riot armor. But whatever they sensed near that bunker, they wanted nothing to do with it. Litovkin spat on the ground and crossed himself, something strictly forbidden in uniform. Then he muttered, "They feel it. Animals always feel it first." Later that evening, I was cleaning my rifle in the barracks when the old sergeant, Mikhailov, sat on the bunk beside me. He didn't say a word at first, just smoked his papyrosa cigarette, staring at the ceiling with dead eyes. Then he said quietly, "You were near K-17 last night, weren't you?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. He continued, "Don't listen to anything you hear from that place. Don't go near the door. And if you ever see it open..." He stopped. His jaw clenched. I waited for him to finish. He didn't. Instead, he grabbed my shoulder hard, so hard his fingers left marks, and said, "If you hear your name, you run. You do not look back." And then he left the room without another word. The next day, during maintenance duty in the communications hut, I found an old leather-bound logbook shoved behind a pile of outdated equipment. It was unlabeled, unmarked, pages yellowed from age. Curiosity got the better of me. Most entries were harmless: patrol notes, supply issues, weather conditions. But then the handwriting changed, and the tone changed with it. The entries became fragmented, paranoid, fearful. Day 12, hearing footsteps near lower level. Day 14, voice calling through the ventilation shafts, not human. Day 17, subject still active, door 3 must remain sealed. Day 20, someone is mimicking the men's voices. And then, Day 22, if anyone finds this, do not enter K-17, not even if someone begs for help from inside. The last page had only one line. It lies. It listens. It learns. A chill ran through me so hard my knees went weak. I shoved the logbook back where I found it and locked the door. But the words stayed with me. That night, I was on patrol again, this time with Yashin, the quiet private. We passed by K-17 together. Fog rolled across the forest floor, thick and milky. And then we heard it. Not metal this time. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, approaching the door from the inside. Yashin froze. The footsteps stopped too, as if whoever or whatever was behind that door knew we were listening. Then, muffled through the thick metal, something knocked. Twice. Yashin whispered, "It's awake again." I turned to him sharply. "Again? What do you mean, again?" He shook his head slowly, then said something that made my heart drop into my stomach. "This happens every few years. It sleeps, then it remembers." I stared at him, waiting for an explanation. He only added, "You'll understand soon enough." And he was right. I would. Much sooner than I wanted. Because the rule, the one we were told from day one, wasn't just a warning. It was a countdown. A countdown
to the day I would find out exactly why we were never allowed near K-17, why we were never allowed to open it, and why something inside it had started knocking.
There's always a moment in stories like this, a single event where everything that felt like paranoia suddenly becomes undeniable. For us, that moment happened on a stormy night in late November 1982. It started with a missing patrol, but it didn't end there. The disappearance. A two-man patrol team, Corporal Sidorov and Private Leonov, failed to check in at 0100 hours. At first, no one panicked. Snow was coming down hard, radios were unreliable, and Sidorov had a habit of stretching his route. But by 0120, the shift commander's voice had changed. He paced the radio room, tapping ash from his cigarette, muttering to himself. At 0130, the base alarm sounded. Not the loud one we used for Americans, but the short, sharp internal one. A missing soldier protocol. We formed search teams immediately. I was assigned to the southern perimeter. And that's when I realized something was very wrong. Our team's route took us directly past K-17. We searched the tree line, calling out to the missing men. Nothing. Just wind and deep snow. Then one of the radio men picked up a faint signal, a single tone repeating every few seconds. Not Morse, not human, just a long, steady electronic whine. He tweaked the frequency and suddenly went pale. It's their channel, he whispered. Our patrol channel, the missing men's radio, still transmitting, still active, but not responding to calls. The tone continued. Beep, beep. Like a heart monitor, like a warning, like a countdown. The radio man pointed toward the bunker. It's strongest from that direction. A cold shock went through us all. None of us wanted to say it, but we all felt it. The missing patrol had gone near the bunker, or worse, inside it. We found footprints, half covered by snow, leading straight towards K-17. Sidorov's heavy boots, Leonov's lighter steps, side by side. Normal at first. Then, as they got closer to the bunker, the prints changed. At about 10 meters distance, the steps became irregular, staggering, unsteady. Then Leonov's prints stopped entirely, vanished. Not faded, not blown away by wind, just stopped, as if he'd been lifted into the air mid-stride. Sidorov's prints continued, one slow step at a time, directly to the bunker door. Then his prints also stopped, right at the threshold. No prints walking away, no prints turning back, no body, no blood. Just a dead end at a sealed door that should not, under any circumstances, open. When we reached K-17, the welded plates were still in place. No cracks, no tampering, no sign anyone had entered. But something new was there. A handprint on the inside-facing edge of the metal door frame. blackened, smudged, fresh enough that snow hadn't covered it yet. Not a print pressed in dust, not grease from machinery. It looked burned onto the metal, like someone tried to push the door open from the inside with a hand hot enough to sear steel. One of the search team whispered, "Impossible." Another crossed himself quietly until the sergeant barked, "Cut that out!" But no one's eyes left that print. No one wanted to stand near it. As we stood there, the wind muffled by the snowstorm, the radio man's receiver suddenly flared with static. Then, beneath the static, a voice, warped, low, barely human, but unmistakable. We all heard it. "Help me." Leonov's voice, except wrong, stretched, broken, like it was echoing through a long metal chamber or through someone else's throat. Then, bang! A loud metallic impact from deep inside the bunker, so powerful the snow shook loose from the trees. The radio man screamed and dropped the device. We all jumped back, weapons raised. My breath froze in my chest. Something inside the bunker had slammed against the inner levels, hard enough to prove it was real, alive, and strong. Too strong. Within minutes, officers arrived, armed, tense, furious. Major Kaprov himself came, wearing only his winter coat thrown over a uniform, face pale under the searchlights. Before we could speak, he yelled, "All units, back away from the bunker, now!" His voice cracked on the last word. The MPs rounded us up, pushing us back toward the base like we were livestock. No explanations, no questions allowed. As we retreated, the major leaned close to the sergeant leading us and whispered, not quite quietly enough, "It's starting again." That word hit me like a punch. Again. Meaning this had happened before. And whatever happened last time was bad enough that the officers had been waiting, dreading, preparing for it to happen again. By sunrise, command issued a strict order. No patrols near K-17. No discussion of the missing men. Radios switched to a new encrypted frequency. Entire southern perimeter sealed. Officially, the missing soldiers had deserted their post. But everyone on base knew men don't desert by walking straight into a sealed bunker door, and men don't leave burned handprints behind. That night, as I lay in my bunk, unable to sleep, I heard the winter wind howl outside, except there was a rhythm in it, a faint tapping, not from the window, not from the hallway, but through the ground, through the pipes, through the floorboards, from the bunker. A slow, deliberate pattern, like someone knocking, calling, waiting. And I knew, sooner or later, I'd have to find out what was inside K-17, because it wasn't just waking up, it was looking for someone, maybe anyone, maybe me.
The staircase to level B2 groaned under my weight as I descended. The deeper I went, the warmer the air became, thick, humid, almost breathing. Condensation dripped from the pipes overhead, tapping the railing like fingertips.
About halfway down, my flashlight flickered. Once, twice, then a third time. And in that split second of darkness, I heard something whisper in my ear. "You're almost here." Not in front of me, not below me, right next to my ear. I spun, raising my rifle, breathing hard, but the upper corridor was empty, silent, cold. Whatever whispered, it hadn't come from behind. It had come from inside the stairwell itself. When I reached the bottom, my boots squished into damp concrete dust. The air tasted metallic, like blood, like ozone, like a room where a lightning strike had just happened. My flashlight beam trembled across the walls, heavy blast doors, observation windows shattered from the inside, overturned gurneys, rusted restraints, peeling signs that read Perception Distortion Testing Division, Audio Responsiveness Unit, Clearance Psi 3 only, and below that, stenciled in red, if subject responds with your voice, evacuate immediately. My breath hitched. The bunker wasn't for storage, it wasn't for weapons, it was for something that mimicked voices, including mine. Ahead, a metal doorway had collapsed, leaving only a narrow gap I had to squeeze through sideways. The next room was a monitoring station, walls lined with reel-to-reel tape equipment. Nearly all the tapes were shredded, clawed apart, but one player still had a tape inside. The label read, Test 12, Subject Vocalization Response. Do not listen without authority. My hands shook as I pressed play. For a few seconds, only static. Then a man screamed, "Close the door! Close the—" Cut off mid-word, followed by heavy breathing, wet, ragged, non-human. Then a voice, a man's voice, calm, soothing. "Hello, is someone there? Please, help me." But the tone was wrong, too smooth, too perfect, like an imitation, like a puppet reading lines. The tape continued. "Let me out. I'm hurt. Please." The voice shifted slightly. Time stretched, pitch bent, as if something was trying to find the right shape for the words. Then the voice changed again, this time deeper, more confident, more human. "If you open the door, I'll show you who I really am." A click, a thud, a dragging sound, and then the tape ended with a soft metallic whisper. "One level deeper." My blood turned to ice, the same words I'd heard outside my barracks, the same voice that called my full name, the same imitation. It wasn't calling me by accident, it was choosing me. I moved deeper, flashlight trembling. The next corridor had deep gouges carved into the floor, long parallel marks, almost like something with claws had been dragged or crawled. As I approached the end of the hallway, I saw something that froze me where I stood. A metal door labeled Isolation Chamber 3. Absolute seal required. Authorized opening date? Never. And the door was cracked open, just a sliver. Just enough to let out a breath of warm air that smelled sweet and rotten, like fruit left in a sealed cellar for months. And on the door, burned into the steel, were fingerprints, human fingerprints, melted into the metal as if someone had grabbed the door with hands hot as a furnace. My heart hammered in my chest. Inside the crack, something moved. Slowly, deliberately, like it was rising to its feet. A shape leaned toward the gap, too tall, too thin, its outline trembling like heat haze. Then I heard my own voice come from behind the door. "Nikolai, please, come help me." But this time it wasn't whispering, it was speaking, clearly, calmly, like it knew I was right outside, like it had been waiting. My flashlight flickered. The voice continued. "You've already come so far. Just open the door." I lifted my rifle. My hand shook uncontrollably because the thing inside the chamber was using my exact voice. Not similar, not close, exact. Then it said something that made every part of my body go cold. "If you won't open the door, I can come out another way." The metal door bulged, dented outward as if something enormous was pressing against it from inside. A low humming vibration filled the floor, like machinery powering up, or a throat preparing to speak. I stumbled backward, almost tripping over broken cables. The door dented again and again, each impact louder, closer, hungrier. I turned and ran, not because of bravery, not because of orders, but because I understood the truth in that moment. The rule wasn't meant to protect us from the bunker. It was meant to protect us from what was trying to leave it, and I had just woken it up, like the metal had spoken.
There comes a point where fear stops being a warning and becomes a magnet. After the disappearance of Sidorov and Leonov, the base changed. The officers stopped pretending K-17 didn't exist. The patrol routes were rearranged. The K-9 unit was removed entirely. 2 watchtowers now pointed their floodlights not outward toward NATO territory, but inward, toward the forest, toward the bunker. It was like the entire installation accepted one truth silently. Whatever was inside K-17 was awake now, and it wasn't going back to sleep. The descent didn't start with bravery, or orders, or curiosity. It started with footsteps, human footsteps, right outside my barracks at 0212 in the morning. I sat up instantly. We were on lockdown. No one was supposed to be outside at night. The footsteps stopped. Then a voice, muffled, strained, whispered my name. My full name. Not the nickname the soldiers used, not my last name the officers barked. My full name, the way my mother said it. "Nikolai, open the door." Every hair on my neck stood up. My mother was in Novosibirsk, thousands of kilometers away. I grabbed my rifle. The voice whispered again. "Help me. It's so dark." My hand tightened on the stock of my AK-74. And then a loud metal crack echoed through the base, followed by a short, sharp alarm. K-17's perimeter sensors. Something had tripped them. Something big. I rushed outside with the other soldiers, boots slipping on frozen dirt. Searchlights swung toward the forest. And there it was. The bunker door
was open. For the first time in 2 decades, the welded plates had been ripped clean off, lying twisted in the snow like torn paper. The lieutenant shouted orders, men pointed rifles, but no one stepped forward, not even the officers. Everyone stood paralyzed, except for me. Because at that moment, cutting through the cold and the chaos, I heard the voice again. Soft, familiar, coming from the darkness of the open bunker door. Nikolai, please, come down 1 level. And this time, it sounded exactly like my own voice. I don't know if it was instinct, curiosity, or madness, but something inside me broke free from fear. I stepped forward. The lieutenant grabbed my arm. "Where the hell do you think you're going?" I looked him dead in the eye. "Someone's alive down there." His jaw clenched. Then he said something I'll never forget. "If you go in, don't expect us to open the door again." I answered, "Then don't close it." And with my rifle raised and a flashlight trembling in my hand, I stepped across the threshold of K-17. The air inside was wrong, warm, wet, stale in a way that made my lungs tighten. It smelled like metal, mold, dust, and something faintly sweet, like spoiled fruit. My flashlight beam cut through thick darkness, illuminating peeling green paint and Soviet propaganda posters. "Keep doors sealed. Subjects must be restrained at all times." The posters were old, edges curled, colors faded, but the paint beneath them, it was fresh. Too fresh, as if the walls had been repainted years after the bunker was abandoned. I moved deeper. My boots echoed down the sloping corridor, a hollow metallic sound. But with every step I took, I noticed something strange. There was a second echo, a half-beat behind mine, like someone else was walking just out of sync with me, invisible, following, or leading. The hallway opened into a small monitoring room. Desks overturned, glass broken, papers scattered across the floor. Old reels of magnetic tape lay everywhere, like someone had frantically torn them apart. I picked one up. There were bite marks on the plastic. Human bite marks. I swallowed hard. On the wall behind the desk were deep scratches carved into the concrete, crude Cyrillic letters. Ne otvechai, don't answer. It looked like someone had clawed the words in with their bare hands. I turned away quickly. The air felt thicker here, heavier. A metallic clank echoed deeper inside the bunker. I raised my rifle. My flashlight flickered once, twice, then stabilized. I took another step, then another. Then, at the end of the corridor, just beyond the reach of my flashlight beam, something moved. A silhouette, human-shaped, standing perfectly still. I froze. "Hello?" I whispered.
I ran. Not the panicked, flailing sprint of a scared recruit. No, this was instinct, pure survival. Like every cell in my body knew I had to get as far from Isolation Chamber 3 as possible. Behind me, the bunker roared. A metallic groaning sound vibrated through the floor, like the entire structure was straining against whatever was pushing from the inside. The dented door slammed outward once more. Not enough to break, but enough to remind me that it was only a matter of time. Only seconds, I sprinted back through the hallway I came from, or at least I tried to. Something was wrong. Horribly wrong. The corridor wasn't the same shape anymore. The walls bowed inward. The ceiling sagged. Pipes twisted like veins. It was the same hallway, but wrong. Shifted. Like the bunker was rearranging itself. I stopped running, but the corridor kept moving. The lights flickered in a rhythmic pattern, like a heartbeat, like breathing. Then the floor vibrated, softly at first, then harder, then violently. A deep whomp echoed from the lower level, followed by a distant scraping, as if something enormous was dragging itself up the stairwell. I raised my rifle, knowing full well a piece of metal wasn't going to save me. That's when the voices started. Not one voice, all of them. Dozens, hundreds, echoing through the vents, through the ceiling, through the pipes. Men pleading, commanders yelling, women crying, children laughing, whispers in languages I didn't understand, screams choked off mid-breath, footsteps, metal slams, breathing. Then, in the chaos, a single voice cut through all of it. My voice. Calm, steady, soft. "Nikolai, don't run. I can see you." I swung the flashlight wildly. Nothing, just darkness. But the voice spoke again, this time from behind me. "Turn around." I didn't. Instead, I fired a burst down the corridor. AK-74 muzzle flash lit the metal walls like a lightning strike. The bullets hit nothing. But the sound made the voices stop. All at once, silence. Then, a soft tapping directly beside my ear. Tap,
Tap, tap, as if a finger was touching the air right next to my skin. I bolted. I reached the stairwell to level B1 and grabbed the railing. Warm. The metal railing was warm to the touch, like someone had just been holding it, someone with feverish, burning skin. I took a step up, and my flashlight caught it. A handprint, fresh, sweaty, human-shaped, but the fingers were too long, too thin, wrong. It wasn't Sidorov's, or Leonov's, or mine. I backed away. Then something slammed into the bottom of the stairwell, hard enough to shake dust from the ceiling. I didn't look. I ran up the stairs 3 at a time. Behind me, I heard scraping, heavy breathing, something following. Not slowly, not cautiously, but eagerly, hungrily. When I reached level A, the bunker lights died completely. Pitch black, silent. Then a whisper, "Stop running," from the right hallway. Then again, "Stop running," from the left. Then, right behind me, "Stop." A cold breath touched the back of my neck. I didn't think. I just fired behind me blindly and sprinted toward the exit corridor. My boots splashed through puddles of condensation. My shoulder slammed into wall corners. My rifle scraped along pipes. My flashlight flickered and then went out. Total darkness swallowed me. I froze. My own pulse roared in my ears. Then, from somewhere ahead, a single, soft footstep. Then another. Not running, not stalking, walking, slowly, steadily, toward me. Tap, tap, tap. I raised my rifle, hands shaking. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel it, like the bunker was full of electric pressure, or something alive was pressing against the air itself. Then the voice came again. "I'm right here." I screamed and fired all 30 rounds into the dark. The muzzle flash lit the corridor, and for less than a second, I saw something. A shadow, tall, thin, distorted, watching me. Its head tilted at a wrong angle, its mouth too wide, its fingers too long. Wrong. It wasn't Sidorov's, or Leonov's, or mine. I fell backward, scrambling on my elbows as the creature stepped forward. But then, a blinding white light flooded the corridor. The exit door had been forced open from the outside. Soldiers, flashlights, shouting. 2 men grabbed me by the arms and dragged me out of the bunker as I screamed, "Don't close it! Don't close it! It's coming!" But the soldiers didn't hesitate. They slammed the steel door shut, then welded it, in wide, frantic arcs, sparks flying. As they sealed it, I heard something hit the door from the inside. Hard. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then it whispered, inches behind the metal. "Almost got you." I passed out, not from fear, but from the realization it hadn't been chasing me to kill me. It had been chasing me to become me. And something tells me it didn't stop trying. Not when the door shut,
Not when the welding cooled. Not even now.
I woke up 3 days later. At least, that's what they told me. I don't remember going unconscious. I don't remember being carried out. I don't remember the medical ward, or the sedation, or the injections. The first thing I remember clearly is the room. A small, white-walled infirmary cell. One bed, one metal chair, one door with no handle on the inside. A man in a dark officer's coat sat across from me. Intelligence Division, not Army. His insignia told me everything. The Committee for State Security, the KGB. He opened the folder, but didn't look at it. He only looked at me. "Tell me," he said quietly, "what did you hear inside K-17? I opened my mouth, but no words came. Not because I didn't want to talk, but because I realized something horrifying. I didn't remember the voices. Not fully. Not their words. Not their shapes. Not the face behind the door. Only impressions, like a dream slipping away." The officer watched me carefully. He tapped the folder with one finger. Inside were photographs. The dented bunker door, the melted handprints, claw marks on the floor, twisted steel welds, scratch marks that spelled, "Don't answer." He closed the folder. "You saw something," he said. "We just need to know what." But the more I tried to remember, the more my mind filled with static, fog, a thick blur where memories should have been, like someone had reached into my skull and erased the shapes before I could name them. "It's normal," he said. "A defense mechanism of the mind. You'll remember, in time." But his eyes told me he didn't believe that. He was waiting for something else, something worse. When they finally released me from the infirmary, the base was different. Guard towers were doubled. Floodlights ran all night. Patrol routes were tripled. Even the dogs were gone, evacuated for safety reasons. The officers avoided my eyes. The soldiers whispered as I passed. Some refused to sleep indoors. Some quit eating. One man ripped his own fingernails out in the barracks, whispering, "It knows us now. It knows our names." The entire installation felt like a hospital waiting for a terminal diagnosis. Like everyone knew something had changed and nothing could change it back. For 2 weeks, the KGB interrogated me daily. Same questions. What shape did it take? What voice did it use? Did it follow you? Did it touch you? Did you answer it directly? Did it use your voice again? But the strangest question they asked was this: has anyone spoken to you who shouldn't be here? The first time they said it, I didn't understand. The third time, I started to notice things. The tapping. At night, behind the walls, beneath the bed, inside the ventilation ducts. 3 taps. Always 3. Tap, tap, tap. And sometimes, when I closed my eyes, I swore I heard breathing that wasn't mine. Once I sat up in bed because the air felt too warm, too close.
I turned toward the room's single mirror, and for half a heartbeat, the reflection wasn't mine. It was close, almost identical, but the eyes were wrong. Too wide, too black, too still. I blinked, and it was gone. I didn't tell the KGB. I didn't tell anyone. Because something in my bones whispered, if you talk about it, you give it shape. I wasn't sure what that meant. I'm still not. On the 14th day, a colonel I'd never met came to my barracks. He handed me papers, discharge documents, signed, stamped, immediate, irreversible. He said, "You have been reassigned to civilian life. Your service is complete. Your record will state medical reassessment." I blinked. "That's it?" I asked. On my last morning, before boarding the transport truck, they performed one last psychological evaluation. Nothing unusual at first. Eye dilation, reaction tests, memory exercises. But then the doctor stood a meter away from me, holding a clipboard, and said, "Repeat after me." He spoke a simple sentence, my own name. Nikolai Sokolov. I repeated it. The doctor stared at me too long. Then he whispered, "Again." We repeated the process, 8 times. Each time he watched my mouth carefully, as if to wait to see whether the words were truly mine. The last sentence he gave me was, "I am myself." I repeated it. He nodded. But the way he wrote on the clipboard, I don't think I passed. On the truck out of Outpost 407, I sat alone in the back, staring out at the black trees passing by. For a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw something move between the trunks. Tall, thin, following the vehicle at a slow, steady pace. I told myself it was a shadow, a trick of the light, a leftover fear from K-17. But then I heard it. 3 taps on the outside of the truck wall. Tap, tap, tap. When I opened my eyes wide and held my breath, it stopped. When I exhaled, it answered, quietly, from behind me, inside the truck. A voice, my voice, whispering, "I'm still here." He stared at me for a long time before answering. "There are places in this world you don't guard, you survive them." He paused, then added, "Go home, Nikolai, and if you ever hear your own voice calling for you, turn the other way." I nodded slowly. He didn't smile. He didn't salute. He didn't shake my hand. He just walked away. And I remember thinking they weren't sending me home because I was safe. They were sending me home because they didn't want me anywhere near K-17 when it finally broke open.
I didn't sleep for the entire trip home. Not the first night, not the second, not after crossing the border, not even after stepping off the train in Novosibirsk, where my mother was waiting, bundled in her winter coat, waving like I'd just come back from school, instead of a sealed bunker that should never have existed. She hugged me tight, too tight. I didn't hug her back, not immediately, because a part of me needed to make sure she was real, that her skin was warm, her breath steady, her voice human, that she didn't say my name in the wrong tone. Eventually, my arms wrapped around her, but something inside me stayed cold. Civilian life was supposed to fix everything. Routine, warm meals, real beds, no alarms, no shifting metal under your feet. But my brain had been rewired, retuned. Every sound felt like a message. Every reflection looked delayed by half a second. Every whisper of wind sounded like someone calling from far away. And the taps, always 3, always close. The first week they came from the walls, the second from the pipes, the third from the floorboards beneath my bed. I tried to ignore them, tried to convince myself they were old house noises, settling wood, winter storms, but they always came in the same rhythm. Tap, 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 like a knock, like a request, like a reminder. 2 months after my discharge, I received a sealed envelope from the Ministry of Defense. Inside, a single sheet of paper. No signature, no header, no date. Just one printed sentence. If you hear your own voice in a place you know you are alone, do not respond. Nothing else. No explanation, no warning, no follow-up. It was the most terrifying letter I have ever received, because it confirmed what I already suspected. K-17 wasn't contained. It never had been. They simply buried it and prayed it stayed buried. And now they weren't sure it had. The first time I dreamed of the bunker, it felt like memory. The warm breathing air, the dented doors, the voice behind the steel whispering my name. But the second dream wasn't memory. It was new. I was standing in my childhood bedroom, night outside the window, snow falling softly, and behind me, in the dark corner of the room, something said, "You left before I could finish." I woke up instantly, sweating, shivering, heart pounding. But what terrified me wasn't the dream. It was the fact that when I woke up, my mouth was open, as if I had been speaking back. One evening, around dinner, there was a knock at the door. 3 taps. My mother moved to answer, but I caught her wrist. She looked confused. "Nikolai, what's wrong?" I didn't speak. I just listened. 3 taps again, but softer this time. Curious, exploring, like someone learning how to knock. "Who is it?" my mother called through the door. Silence. Then a voice answered. My voice. "Mama, it's me. Let me in. It's cold." Her face softened instantly. She reached for the doorknob. I slammed my hand against it, hard. "Don't!" She turned on me, furious. "That is not funny, Nikolai." But I wasn't laughing. I whispered, "That isn't me." Her face drained of color. We stood frozen in place. Then
A shadow passed under the door, tall, long, too long, and the voice spoke again, still using mine, still perfect, but this time there was something underneath it, a rasp, a wetness, a hunger. Open the door, Mama. He's not your son. My mother gasped. The thing outside tapped again, 3 taps. Then, let me in. I can be him better. I didn't breathe, neither did she. The shadow under the door stretched, reached, explored the gap, then slowly drew back, and after a long silence, we heard footsteps, slow, steady, walking away from the house, not down the road, not toward the neighbors, but into the woods behind the property, where the trees swallowed it whole. I didn't sleep that night, or the night after, because I understood something. K-17 wasn't designed to contain a creature. It was designed to contain a pattern, a voice, a mimicry, an intelligence that didn't need bodies, didn't need form, only proximity, a signal, a contagion of sound. And by sending soldiers down there, by letting us hear it, they let it hear us too. Let it learn us. That night was the last time I heard the tapping at the door, but not the last time I heard the voice. It still comes sometimes, from places it shouldn't. Closets, mirrors, empty hallways, the quiet space behind me when I stand alone in the kitchen. Always soft, always calm, always patient, and always, always in my exact voice. It knows I won't answer, but it isn't in a hurry. It waited decades inside a sealed bunker. It can wait a few more years. And if you ever visit that forest in East Germany, and hear someone calling from the trees, and the voice sounds familiar, close, just a little too perfect, don't respond, don't turn, don't listen, because whatever broke free from K-17 is still learning, still wandering, still copying, and it's always looking for a door someone will open, even if that door is the one inside your head.